Don't know what to say. I hope you're doing well. I don't know what I'm doing for this live stream, but I don't know. I'm just going to see how this goes. Just hope you're having a good afternoon wherever you are in the world. South Africa, America, Britain, Europe, Mexico. Of course, Pastor Maldonado is rumoured to be making a comeback to Formula One. That's right. The great Venezuelan GOAT is coming back to the sport. Did you not hear? He wants to come back at the age of 39 years old. You know, he's been saying if Dan Ricciardo can race an F1, I can race an F1. We have to remember, Maldonado is a race winner. I think it's amazing. Who said that? Was it John Lacey? He might have had the best race of all the drivers to win one race. Well, Robert Kubica won in Canada. That was a great win. Anyway, Panis won from, what was it, 14th on the grid in Monaco, 96. What else? I know Kovalainen won a race but in Hungary, but that was only because Felipe Massa blew up with 3 laps ago. That was one of the luckiest wins ever in F1. And of course, Ron Dennis came out with a famous line of, well, hero, welcome to the world of winning, Heikki. I hope this is going to be the first of many more. Prophetic words there, as of course, Heikki would never win again. Everyone thinks Max is going to win today. How many race wins does Carlos Sainz have in his career? Is it 3 wins? I keep forgetting. Prince, oh yeah, 2022 British Grand Prix was just a stunning race. Stunning Grand Prix performance. Max will win today. I do feel like it. Max has got an amazing record in Mexico, I think. 2017, 18, 21, 22, 23. He's already won here 5 times, which is so weird to think of because, of course, you keep getting pundits saying that Max Verstappen is not good enough to. I mean, the Red Bull is not that great around Mexico City. Surprised you're doing a live stream about this. Well, I mean, the race doesn't start until like, I don't know, 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock night time here in Britain. It's going to be a late race start for us over in Europe because, of course, the time difference. So obviously we've got an afternoon of doing nothing, and I mean, the football match between Arsenal and Liverpool doesn't start until 4 o'clock today. Sainz to Williams. I mean, Williams are getting a great driver, definitely, but just doesn't seem right that McLaren didn't make an attempt to get Carlos Sainz back to their team. And I mean, the problem is with Carlos Sainz at Williams is that the most he could get there is probably finish 6th in the constructor standings. So for me, whoever does worse out of Norris or Piastri and McLaren next year should probably swap their seats with Sainz for 2026 because neither of them are lead drivers. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, they're very talented. They can be quick, but they're very inconsistent. I mean, Williams just do not give me no. This year's McLaren team give me the impression of a team that sort of remind me of what Williams were like in 2003 with Ralph Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya. In that they had a fast car, but neither driver could lead the team, and neither of them were consistent enough in the season. Montoya had a hot temper. Ralph likes to crash out a lot. Got to remember, Norris is 5 years younger. I'm trying to think, what was Carlos Sainz like in 2018, 19? I mean, I think Carlos Sainz was driving a bit better than what Norris has been doing this year, back in 2019, to be honest. If you're going to do that sort of age comparison reference. Do you think this is Piastri's second season? Yeah, obviously. There's also, of course, the lack of experience card for Piastri. Like, how good will he become with experience? Although, of course, I have to say there have been quite a few poor quality performances of Piastri, which is quite worrying, to be honest. Oh, right. Sainz wants to go to Red Bull Mercedes. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Do Red Bull Mercedes really want Carlos Sainz? That's another big dilemma for him. I'm trying to think. It's like, I don't get it. Why is what happened at McLaren that made Carlos Sainz not want to stay there after 2020? Was it because he didn't think Zach Brown was a good enough team principal? Is it a technical department that he didn't like? It's just a really strange one for me to try and work out why was he so desperate to end up going to Ferrari for 2021? seems to be everyone has underestimated how good McLaren would become this season, including McLaren themselves, by the way. I don't know. I mean, if Sainz wants to go to Red Bull, he's got to hope Max Verstappen leaves. But of course, with Adrian Newey, Jonathan Wheatley leaving the team, and quite a few other people rumoured to be leaving the team. Obviously, Will Courtney's left the strategy department, and with the Red Bull car getting worse this year, I don't really know if they should really keep, whether Sainz really would be advised to go to Red Bull for 26, and of course they're going to be using Ford engines for that season as well, and of course nobody has any idea how good Ford will be in 18 months' time. Yeah, it's egg. Yeah, it's a boiled egg. When Ferrari is calling, most of the drivers won't say the N-word. I'm presuming you're saying that most drivers will not say no to them. Yeah. I mean, even Lewis Hamilton is going to be joining them next year, and of course, Hamilton has spent most of his career being the arch nemesis towards Ferrari, and now he's joining them, despite the fact that Ferrari have not won a driver's title since his first season of Formula One, which is crazy to think, but it does speak volumes of how much of a brand name Formula One are to this day, despite their lack of success. Yeah, it's Chinese. It's egg noodles. Egg noodles, yeah, bright yellow egg noodles, Chinese noodles. Tottenham are losing. Whatever, who cares? Just another day in the life of a Tottenham fan. I mean, I'd rather support Derby County in the Championship than Tottenham. I think, yesterday Derby County drew 1-1 at home to Hull City. So, of course, very competitive league. I mean, Derby are 4 points off a place in the playoffs, but they're also 4 points above the relegation zone. So, solidly mid-table, but anything can happen in the Championship. I mean, Luton Town have come back down and they're struggling. So, very exciting league down the English lower leagues. But what was I going to say? Yeah, today's race, unfortunately, I think Max Verstappen looks like a heavy favourite with only one vote going to Carlos Sainz. You're getting a lot of views here. Yeah, I think it's because, we'll see, people want to see people eat food rather than me just sitting there and talk about Formula One. Like, this is just sort of like a mind trick experiment to see how I can, whether the YouTube algorithm will give me more views. And it turns out to be that people really do like to watch people eat food or, film scenery on this kind of, this platform. Because if you just put your face to the camera and just ramble all the time, I think people get very bored of it. And they don't like it if you don't put any sort of, information on the screen as well. I think that's another thing I've worked out, that people like to have information written out to them rather than just have your face in the middle of the camera. I think that's what I've learned over doing live streaming over the last 6 months. Like, if you just see your face and there's no information, everyone's just like, whatever, mate. Give me the score. Give me the race order. That's understandable because, of course, if you're just staring at someone's face, they can't track what minute the game is, and they can't track the scoreline and who scored the goals, or who's leading the race, who's got pole position, who's done a pit stop, blah 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 blah. What time? 2:40. 240. Dad. Just. Sorry, just having a problem here. Okay. Can you see it? Sorry, up there, 1437. All right. 237. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, what was I going to say? Yeah, people saying Max wins is a surprise, given Lando will start third and will have to tow for the straight. I don't know, mate. Yeah, Lando Norris could actually win today. I think this is a weird thing. I know we've all been ranting on about how poor Lando Norris' starts have been throughout this whole season, but funnily enough, starting third might be an advantage for Lando today, and I think since no one's going to be expecting him to be leading at the first corner, and the fact that he can get a huge tow down the straight, yeah, he's actually got a chance of winning, of actually getting, well, not leading from turn one, but maybe putting his car in a good position to swoop past both Max and Sainz coming out of the exit of turn one, and then grabbing the lead when they enter turn two, if you understand what I mean, by like doing the switchback maneuver. Like, Fernando, like, considering like no one expects him to be good at starts anymore, I think qualifying third might be a blessing for him today. I think, even though I know a lot of us have lost faith in Lando, I think honestly, the way it is, he needs at least 11 or 12 points. He needs to gain 11 or 12 points on Max in every one of the final 5 race weekends we have. And frankly, I don't really see Lando being under as much pressure to win the championship or even take the championship to the final race anymore, because realistically, Max really should win the championship with his experience and his knowledge. I think the problem with Lando is that the second half of the race, where of course everyone gets their pit stops done, and whether Lando can bang in fast lap times come the second half of the race, because if Lando can't get the job done in terms of being consistently fast in lap times, if he gets a lead on lap 1 or maybe lap 2, depending on where his car is. I mean, even if he doesn't get the lead on the first lap, as long as he stays close to Sainz and Verstappen and gets a tow on them on the straight going for lap 2 or lap 3 when they get DRS, I mean, the thing is, like, obviously, he'll probably lead the first stint if he gets the lead, and then, of course, the pit stops will be very, very crucial to see what happens next, because you have to remember, track position is key around Mexico, because, of course, you can only overtake on the start finish straight. Oh, right. Yeah. In Norway. Goodness me, it's a lot closer in Norway, because I know there's only like 2 or 3 teams that get to qualify for Europe every year down in Norway. Obviously, one team gets Champions League football qualifying round, another gets Europa League qualifying round, and the other one only gets Conference League qualifying round. It's very, very, very tight there. Yeah, but Will, you have to understand though, we are at Mexico City, and if I'm going to be truly honest, I think the expectations for Lando Norris to win has actually gone down quite considerably now, considering all the mistakes he's made over this season. And I think today he can actually play the role of the underdog. And to be honest, I think with the massive toll you can get on the start finish straight, I mean, I do think Lando has a chance of taking the lead in the first 3 laps, if you understand what I mean, if he can get a good tow on Max and Sainz. Like, as long as Norris gets a decent enough start where, like, he stays in 3rd place or only drops to 4th at worst, yeah, he can get a tow on Sainz, Max, and who's going to be 4th? Who's starting 4th? Is it, I'm trying to think. Is it Leclerc? Yeah, Leclerc. If he can get a toll on all 3 of those drivers, depending whether he's 3rd or 4th going into lap 2 and lap 3, he can definitely have a chance of sweeping past them and taking the lead, especially on lap 3 when, of course, you get DRS. I think the first 3 laps will be actually quite interesting to watch until, of course, once the race order settles down. I think if Lando gets the lead, then, of course, it's going to be a matter of him making sure he laps very quickly and times his pit stops correctly, which would possibly lead to a very crucial race win at this stage of the season for Lando. And I want to see Lando do well despite all my criticism. Like, I don't want this championship fight to end today or the next race, because it'll be really sad to see, because we've not had a championship fight for 3 years now. Yeah, dude, I've already said what I think about Alex Albon, to be honest. I like the lad, but I think he's found his limit. Like, great performance in qualifying, but I think this is about the maximum Alex Albon can do, and I don't think he'll ever get a seat better than what he's getting at Williams anymore. Okay. That's interesting. I know what's it, if you get knocked out Champions League qualifying, you can then drop down to another qualifying round in the Europa League or the Conference League, depending where you are. So, but let's be honest, if you qualify for the Champions League, you don't even get to earn that much money as a smaller team in Europe anymore. Like, they've basically turned the Champions League into a glorified European Super League. So, I mean, to be honest, I'd rather get knocked out of Champions League qualifying and go to, like, the Europa League or the Conference League at this point, because at least I think you'd rather be able to try and win something, or at least be able to reach the quarterfinals. Although, of course, in the Conference League, you don't earn that much money for anything you do. Even if you win the competition, I think it's basically peanuts. Yeah, 400 races for Fernando Alonso. All-time, most race starts, most seasons in F1, I think. This is his 21st season in Formula 1. 21 seasons Alonso has competed in the sport, which is remarkable. Of course, we all know Alonso loves F1 despite all the woes he's had over the years. I mean, obviously, in another world, I know some people have speculated, would Alonso still be here had he won like 5 or 6 championships? And I think, yeah, he still would be. Having said that, though, I think the way Alonso has fallen out with people in Formula 1 and certain people like at McLaren and Ron Dennis and at Ferrari has sort of made his reputation, unfortunately. And unfortunately, he is a very clear sign that you can have all the talent you want, but if you don't have a good car and you don't get on well with your team, then you're always going to be quite limited in how much success you can really have in the sport. Because modern F1, modern Formula One is more than just driving talent these days. Yeah, I agree with you, Vettel Hamilton. That's always been my beef with Alonso. Like, amazing driver, but questionable interpersonal skills. What team do you support, John? Like, I can't keep up with what you're talking about. You keep saying my team, but like, I don't understand if you don't mention who they actually are, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with Vettel. Like, Vettel never had the same sort of talent as Alonso did, but we all know Vettel's great at getting along with people and good at strategy, good at technical feedback, good at understanding other people's emotions, good at forming relationships with other people. Like, he fully maximizes opportunities at Red Bull. And oh, Viking, yeah, Viking. That's a proper name for a football club. Yeah, I don't know. Viking. It's just I don't know what it is. I mean, I know Viking's not exactly a big name in European football, but I don't know. It's always a name that just completely disappears past me because, of course, it's the same as Viking, as in like the old Norwegian ancestors. But I keep forgetting about the fact that there's actually a football club called Viking. Whilst over here in Britain, I think most football club names, apart from obviously Celtic, Rangers, and the London clubs, are mostly named after the locations they belong in, like Oldham, Macclesfield, Mansfield, Man United, Man City, Derby County, etc. I mean, it's only when you get to London where you get like Arsenal and Chelsea and Tottenham, Arsenal and Chelsea, where it's like, I don't know, I don't even know. Are there any? There's no places I know. Well, okay, there is a place called Chelsea in Kensington, but Arsenal is not named after anything. Oh, the only team that. Oh, Roy Hodgson managed Viking. Yeah, well, that's the thing with Formula One. I mean, if it was about driving talent, Alonso, I would agree, would probably have at least 4 or 5 championships minimum at this point. But as you know, the politics and the technical side of the sport does get in the way a lot. And I would obviously argue as a Kimi Raikkonen fan that my man would probably have at least 3 or 4 championships, depending on how good you really think he is. Oh, Snick. Oh, Snick, yeah. One of 15 or 16 drivers to win 2 championships, one of only 8 to win 30 races, one of only 6 to get over a century of podiums. Yeah, I mean, obviously, Alonso still has an impressive CV, but there is always going to be a case of it could have been so much more with his driving talent and specifically his ability to adapt to the car and like be able to drive the car in all sorts of different states and setups and modes and all that, like cars with lots of oversteer, cars with lots of understeer, cars with a stiff front end, cars with a twitchy rear end. Alonso's still going to be quite quick despite any sort of car problems he might encounter. It is quite remarkable. I mean, yeah, Kimi Raikkonen got on better with Alonso, like, and we all know Kimi Raikkonen's was never the most talkative or the most extroverted character. Like, we all know that Kimi never hid the fact that he was a big fan of being one of those guys who would um be the last to arrive to a test session and be the first to leave. Likewise, on a race weekend, last to join the paddock, first to leave the paddock to go to a party somewhere. Pep Guardiola played for Barcelona against Viking in 1992. Oh, right. And Barcelona managed to win the game the Champions League leg 1-0. Yeah, back when, obviously, the Champions League was an actual Champions League competition where only the champions actually qualified, which is such a shame to think about, because I think that's what the Champions League really should be about. Like, only the league champions, the cup winners, and maybe a couple of teams that finish runners up in their league should really qualify for the competition, and no one else, to be honest, because I think we all know the sport has become a lot more about money and just TV deals and all that nonsense. Oh, this is a tricky one with Kimi Raikkonen, to be honest. You know, people say Kimi could have won more, but then of course we have to remember McLaren had a very unreliable package with Adrian Newey designing the car. So, I mean, I know Ron Dennis said that Kimi pushed too hard, but I don't really see how Kimi could have been in the position to win so many races if he didn't drive as fast as he did. And we all know Mika Hakkinen, David Coulthard, and Montoya had plenty of reliability issues when he drove for McLaren back in the 2000s. So I'm not really sure. Like, I mean, maybe obviously when you talk about Kimi Raikkonen's career after 2007, then you can start talking about Kimi's lack of dedication probably becoming an issue then, because of course when he went to Ferrari, and then Ferrari apparently started giving Felipe Massa favors over the front and rear suspension designs, and then rumors that Ferrari wanted Santander sponsorship, and they were apparently courting Fernando Alonso because obviously they were not that impressed by the fact that Kimi Raikkonen wasn't really destroying Felipe Massa, like putting a huge gap on him like Schumacher did before him. It's quite a bitter pill for me to swallow, because of course, yeah, I know Alonso obviously got more out of the car when he drove for Ferrari, but the end result was that Alonso didn't win a world championship for Ferrari at all. So despite all his talent, it didn't quite add up at all. And Kimi does know some Italian, but I think the problem with Kimi Raikkonen is that apparently when he was like 5 years old, he injured his throat. So being able to speak and pronounce words properly is obviously not Kimi Raikkonen's strongest trait. And, well, I mean, you got to realise most of the engineers and mechanics at Ferrari do know how to speak English to some extent, so it's not like... I don't think the language barrier was quite as bad as you think it was. I think, honestly, Kimi's problems at Ferrari, I think, came between him and the head management rather than himself and the engineers and the mechanics that work in the garages, to be honest, because I think the mechanics and the engineers all got on with Kimi. I think it was mostly people like Sergio Macchioni and I think Luca Di Montezemolo, who were a bit annoyed with Kimi. I think that's where Kimi's conflicts came from. The Club World Cup, yeah. I mean, Inter Miami are going to be playing in that competition. So, I mean, at this point, they might as well just name it the FIFA All-Stars tournament or something stupid, because that's what it is at this point. It's not... There's no actual qualifying competition for that nonsense. Comparing back... different generations of drivers now, like we're talking about. I don't know how to compare Max, because he's driving in a very different era of Formula One, where there's mostly like all his contemporaries, like George Russell, Lando Norris until this year, and Leclerc have not had cars good enough to fight for a championship, apart from, of course, Norris this season. I think we have to wait for Max Verstappen I think in 5 or 6 years' time, I think we can make far better judgments on Max Verstappen and where he really stands amongst the legends of the sport. I mean, to be honest, I would have to rate Max Verstappen above Kimi Raikkonen, mostly because, yeah, Max Verstappen has already achieved a ridiculous amount in such a short space of time, and in many ways, I do sit there and think, what's it? Max Verstappen basically of what Kimi Raikkonen could have been like had Kimi Raikkonen been prepared to become a racing driver at a much younger age. Because, of course, I think Kimi only started taking motor racing seriously when he was like 19, 20 years old, to be honest. Because, like he had a very short leap from Formula Renault UK to Formula One within about 2 years. So Kimi wasn't really had the mindset and the sort of assistance of what most top racing drivers get, where most of their careers basically now start at I don't know, 10 years old or even younger than that. I mean, Max basically was being pushed to become a top racing driver when he was 5 years old, compared to Kimi Raikkonen, who actually got to live a childhood. And I think a lot of contemporaries of Kimi's era, like Montoya and Jacques Villeneuve, were very similar in that. I think Jacques Villeneuve only started racing properly when he was 18 years old, and I think Montoya only started when he was 14 or 15, so it's not like... I know Kimi did a lot of karting from the age of 11 years old, but I think he was only 16 or 17 when he began to sit there and think that he might actually make the leap up to car racing. You think Max is already better than Alonso? That terrifies me. He could. Well, I think Max is already better than Vettel as well. To be honest, he's already won more races than Vettel, and to be honest, he's a lot more adaptable than Vettel. And I think Max is, to some degree, slightly better at dealing with team politics, engineers, and team principles than Alonso ever really was. So, I think Max Verstappen deserves to be labelled as a generational talent. And look at the way he's dealt with Lando Norris this year. He's made it look like child's play, to be honest. Honest to God, Lando has the better car, but Max keeps scoring big points every weekend, regardless of whether the Red Bull is only the third or fourth fastest car. So... And of course, with no Kimi Raikkonen to compare him with, I think I can actually judge Max Verstappen a lot more objectively than what I was able to do 6 or 7 years ago. I mean, yeah, Verstappen is right up there with Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton already. There's no arguments. And to be frankly honest, I'm going to say this. If Max Verstappen somehow doesn't win the championship again this season, then I think there'll be something quite a real stroke of bad luck or a genuine piece of injustice coming his way if he somehow fails to end the season as a quadruple 4-time world champion. Max has once again clearly been the best driver of the grid. And I am not even remotely close to a Max Verstappen fan due to what I personally think about Jos Verstappen as a person and his dad's behaviour, domestic violence, assaulting participants at kart tracks. So I have no horse in this race. The only thing I would like to happen is maybe Norris stretches his championship fight ahead for another couple of races before the inevitable happens, because I don't want Lando Norris to end this season with just 3 or 4 wins, because I think that would be a bit sad. But at the same time, I think Lando Norris clearly does not deserve to win the championship due to his lack of consistency and his mistakes he's made throughout the year. Oh my God, Vettel versus Hamilton, that's a really tricky one because, I think both of those drivers have had a lot of help from having Red Bull and Mercedes give them very good cars over the years, and having a very beatable teammate in someone like Mark Webber, who was miles past his best in his late 30s, and then of course Valtteri Bottas, who was never really good enough, just in the same way Sergio Perez has never really been good enough to fight for a championship. And of course, to some extent, maybe someone like Daniel Ricciardo, who I think was made to look good by Vettel losing interest at Red Bull, then having Danny Griffith as a teammate, and then having a 19-year-old Max Verstappen as a teammate, which made him probably look a lot better than whatever it is. So, Will, are you trying to say that Michael Schumacher is still number one? Which, I'm not going to argue with your opinion if you think that's true, but but the thing with Vettel, Alonso, and Hamilton is that I think a lot of their success has definitely come down to the car they've had. Because, yeah, I do agree with you that those three are at least as close to each other as you possibly could get. Oh my God! I think was it though? Vettel was definitely let down and restricted by the shenanigans at Ferrari, who, of course, like I said, when I talked about Kimi Raikkonen, Ferrari are not a good enough team operationally, in terms of logistics, setting the car up, getting the right updates on the car race to race, getting the best upgrades possible, making sure the car is consistently the best, and having a race strategist who can time the pit stops properly, all of those logistical and operational things have definitely let Ferrari down for the past 16 years now, since 2008. And I don't get it. I know people sit there and say Kimi had a bad 2008, but Kimi clocked up 10 fastest laps in 2008, which is another bugbear of mine, because Kimi could clearly push the car very quickly lap to lap, but for some reason in qualifying, the team couldn't find the right setup for him. And the suspension was, I think the pull rod suspension was not to Kimi's liking, hence why he struggled to create heat in the tyres. And then, of course, I think as the season went on with more and more problems, like the car blowing up at Valencia, and then, of course, the Singapore incident, where I think Kimi was actually on course to win the race. I think Kimi just kind of gave up, because I think he just thought, oh my God, I'm just so fed up with dealing with Ferrari and what I had to deal with McLaren. And Vettel is another wild card. Okay, that's interesting. That's the thing with Vettel and Hamilton, is that I actually do agree they've been fairly equal in their careers, but ultimately Hamilton profited from being in the right place at the right time when he was at Mercedes. So that's life, I'm afraid. I will say though, Michael Schumacher, I don't think ever had a consistently strong rival throughout his career like Prost and Senna had in their time. What did Schumacher have? He had Damon Hill, who was okay at best. Jacques Villeneuve, who then left Williams after 98. Mika Hakkinen for about 3 years. And then, of course, between 2001 to about 2002-ish, he was fighting Coulthard for the title in 01, but Coulthard's championship battle went to pieces very quickly. 2002, he was fighting no one. 2003, he had Kimi, Montoya, and certain points he had Ralf Schumacher and Alonso to fight against. And it was only, 2006 that he had a full season of fighting Alonso. So, like I said, I think Schumacher had 7 or 8 drivers fighting him, but none of them were able to ever fight him for any longer than 3 years at most. There was never anyone who throughout Schumacher's time, no other driver, none of the big names like Alonso or Raikkonen saw their peaks collide at the precise same moment as Michael Schumacher, if you know what I mean. I think probably it was only maybe Damon Hill and Mika Hakkinen early on who had their peaks come at the same time as Schumacher, but of course, like I said, they were only on top for about 3 years before they fell off themselves. So compared to Schumacher, who I think made his peak, his prime driving years last from like 1994 to about 2006, which is a gargantuanly long time, 12 years. Okay, say, I think you need to stop smoking whatever you're smoking, because I think you're being a bit weird right now. Like, I know you like a bit of the bifter, but yeah, please don't smoke it when you're talking to me on these streams. I think the problem with Vettel is his lack of consistency, though, when you give him a car that doesn't work to his liking. Like, a twitchy rear end was always a huge nemesis of Vettel's driving style in his career. Like, I think you have to realise the number of times he lost the rear end when the car was unstable at the back was a real problem for Vettel. Like, I've never seen a driver lose the rear end coming out on the exit of a corner as much as Vettel, which is so weird to watch. Like, I have never seen like Kimi Raikkonen or even Jenson Button or even Nico Rosberg have those sort of problems, despite the fact that most people would rate those drivers below him. And we've never seen the likes of Hamilton, Alonso, Schumacher, or Verstappen have those issues. So it's like a very peculiar, like a very specific driving style Vettel had, which I think is like the primary reason of what people criticize Vettel for during his career. Like, the thing with the Toro Rosso is that obviously, whilst it wasn't the fastest car in the pack, it was like, in terms of the wet conditions at Monza that day, like they found the correct setup. The car worked very well with the wet Bridgestone tyres. The gearbox positioning just suited the track very well in the damp conditions. And I think Sebastian Bourdais, I think, clocked up what was like the second fastest lap behind Sebastian Vettel that day. But of course, Bourdais had a clutch issue at the start, so he had to start a lap down and finish well out of the points. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we could always counter, Vettel winning in a Toro Rosso argument with the fact that Hamilton won twice in the 2009 McLaren, which started the year off being an absolute piece of junk. But of course, once the team found the right upgrades and the right settings for the car in the second half of the year, then Hamilton went and won at Hungary and Singapore. But of course, I think, as we all know, Brawn fell off. And Red Bull didn't quite capitalise as well as they probably should have done, since I think Ferrari also improved their car after Massa's accident in Hungary. So, swings and roundabouts. And I think you have to realise back in 2008 and 2009, Formula One was just simply a lot more competitive than what it is now. So, I mean, we could always say stuff like, well, Ocon won in an Alpine, Gasly won in an AlphaTauri. There were very, very much fluke elements involved in those race wins. Like, Panis won a Ligier. I think, obviously, on the whole, I mean, the 2009 McLaren was definitely better than the 2008 Toro Rosso. You were a fan of Man City before like 2008. Yeah, fair enough. Like, I do remember like Man City back in the day, like struggling to get out of League One back in like 1999. Like, Man City used to be a club that used to like lose by like 6-0 to Derby County in like certain league fixtures. I know, I found videos. It's such a huge contrast to what Man City are these days. Yeah, I mean, 2009 Ferrari, obviously, I think the car had some really god-awful driving characteristics, and, I don't think I think the only reason why Kimi won at Belgium was because of Ferrari had the KERS device made for their car, and it allowed Kimi to stay ahead of Giancarlo Fisichella down the straights, because without that, yeah, Fisichella would have won the race. Because, I mean, but I have to say, though, you could argue that having that heavy curse device made the Ferrari really imbalanced, because obviously the curse weighed like 30 kilos or whatever it was. I mean, yeah, I agree with you, Will, because I mean the problem is with McLaren is that they also had Heikki Kovalainen in the second car, so Heikki Kovalainen just fell off so badly in 2009. So really, I think obviously the fact that Jensen Button did way better than what Kovalainen ever did in his 2 years at McLaren in 2010 onwards is kind of makes you wonder, like, how much of a wasted year 2009 was for McLaren. Obviously, the car wasn't very good in the first 8 or 9 races, but once they got the upgrades going, Hamilton knew how to win. And of course, we have to remember Hamilton could have won at Abu Dhabi at the end of the season. So, yeah. Who will win in Mexico? Max Verstappen, but Carlos Sainz has got 4 votes now. Carlos Sainz is catching up. Hope everyone's doing well in the chat. You know what? I think I'm going to end the stream now because I don't really know what else to say. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time here at Crystal Racing.